What if I told you, turning 50 doesn't mean shutting down your desire but waking it up in a whole new way? That intimacy after 50 isn't over, it's just evolving into something deeper, richer, more powerful than anything your 20s ever knew. If you've ever felt invisible, undesired, or unsure whether love still has a place in your life, this is for you. Stay with me. Because in the next few minutes, we're going to dismantle the myths, reignite connection, and reveal a truth no one talks about. Real intimacy doesn't fade with age, it finally begins. If that speaks to you, hit like, share this with someone you love, and subscribe because this conversation could change everything. Part 1, What really changes after 50, and what no one does. Hello, dear listeners. You've crossed the threshold of 50. You've gathered wisdom, lived through decades of experiences, joys, heartbreaks, and triumphs. And somewhere along that journey, the world quietly began sending you a message: your time for intimacy is over. But let me say something clearly, that this video is not just about sexuality. It's about something deeper: connection, dignity, and rediscovering your body and soul in the second how. The myth of T. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Society tends to treat sexuality as the exclusive territory of the young. Images of passion are tied to smooth skin, firm bodies, fast energy. And once we reach midlife, especially beyond 50, the narrative shifts. Romance becomes a punchline. Affection turns in. But reality tells a different story. What truly changes after 50 is not the disab. Many people reper emotional closeness, tenderness, and authenticity. What really changes in the body? Now let's speak frankly about the physical side. Yes, the body evolves. For women, menopause may bring dryness, decreased estrogen, and shifts in libido. For men, testosterone levels decline, sometimes affecting erections or stamina. Joints ache more. Sleep becomes trickier. Energy isn't what it used to be. These are facts, but they are not barriers, they are signals. The body is saying, approach with mindfulness. Be gentle. Be curious again. Instead of seeing these changes as obstacles, we can view them as invitations to slow down and reconnect. Intimacy after 50 becomes a new dance, slower, more intentional, and often more emotionally fulfilling. The power of slowing down. One of the great gifts of aging is the capacity to slow down, not just in daily life, but in the way we relate to ourselves and others. In our younger years, intimacy may have been rushed, goal-oriented, or pressured by performance. But now, there's space to truly be present. Imagine intimacy without expectations. Without pressure. Without shame. Imagine it as a moment of deep listening, touch, eye contact, and breath. A space where you don't have to prove anything, where you are enough as you are. Many older couples discover that their connection becomes stronger when they stop trying to meet unrealistic standards and instead focus on authentic connection and shared experience. Emotional intimacy grows stronger. Beyond the physical, something else changes after 50 that most people never talk about: emotional availability deepens. You've lived. You've made mistakes. You've known loss. And because of that, your capacity to love and empathize grows. This is where real intimacy takes root. Physical closeness in midlife and beyond is often wrapped in something even more powerful: emotional safety. A hug means more. A kiss holds years of understanding. Making love isn't just a physical act, it becomes an expression of spiritual and emotional connection. If your relationship has matured alongside you, intimacy can become a sacred bond, one that's less about function and more about presence. Redefining what it means to be intimate. Let's debunk another myth: intimacy is not synonymous with intercourse. In fact, many people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond find joy in non-sexual intimacy, nurturing bonds that feel deeply connected even without physical sex. That might look like a long, slow walk holding hands, cooking a meal together in silence, sharing old stories in bed, massaging each other's tired feet, really listening to your partner's fears, dreams, and joys. In these moments, we find real intimacy, not just body to body, but soul to soul. Facing insecurities with compassion. Let's also be honest, aging brings insecurities. Sagging skin, weight changes, scars from surgery or childbirth, or simply the natural wear of life. Many of us begin to question, am I still desirable? Would anyone want me like this? But here's a truth that cuts through the fear: desirability is not about perfection. It's about presence. When someone truly sees you, not your wrinkles, not your graying hair, but your essence, that is where desire is born. Your worth was never defined by youth. It was always about your ability to love, to connect, and to be honest with yourself and others. Shifting priorities, from performance to pleasure. One of the most liberating shifts after 50 is that the pressure to perform often fades. You begin to prioritize pleasure over achievement. You listen to your body more. You explore new rhythms and forms of connection. For some couples, this means discovering new ways of being close. For others, it's about exploring new roles, positions, or simply being okay with change. Laughter becomes part of the experience. So does vulnerability. And when both partners embrace this mindset, they often report more fulfilling experiences than they ever had in their 20s or 30s. A new chapter, not the end. In truth, age 50 is not an ending, it's a transition. You are not broken. You are evolving. And with that evolution comes opportunity. Opportunity to reconnect with yourself. To fall in love again with your partner, or with someone new. To explore the new language of your body. To heal old wounds. To create a space where touch, love, and desire are welcome, even in a world that tells you to shrink back. You don't need permission to be intimate. You don't need to look young or feel like you used to. You only need one thing: the courage to be open again. Closing thought, a flame that never dies. To anyone watching this who feels like your time for intimacy is behind you, I invite you to rethink that. Love doesn't have an expiration date. And the flame inside you? It may flicker, but it never dies. All it needs is a little space, a little patience, and a little permission to rise again. So don't believe the lie that 50 is the end. It might just be your beginning. Stay with us, because in part 2, we'll explore how intimacy becomes even more profound when it becomes a bridge between bodies, minds, and souls. Part 2, the silent barriers to intimacy after 50, and how to gently overcome them. Hello again, dear listener. If you've made it here, you already know, intimacy doesn't vanish with age, it evolves. But just because the desire is still alive doesn't mean the path forward is always clear. In fact, many people in midlife or beyond find themselves face to face with new, often silent barriers, things they never expected would impact their ability to connect. Today, we're going to talk about those hidden obstacles. Not to dwell on them, but to disarm them. Because when we understand what's really standing in the way, we can move forward with more compassion, more freedom, and more joy. 1. The weight of unspoken shame. Let's start with a heavy one: shame. So many people carry it silently. Perhaps it's shame about how their body has changed. Shame about past mistakes. Shame about needing more time, more touch, or even more space to feel safe again. For some, it's shame born from trauma or failed relationships. For others, it's cultural or religious conditioning that told them intimacy is wrong unless it fits a rigid box. But here's the truth: shame is a thief. It doesn't just steal your confidence, it steals your right to feel loved, to be touched, and to express yourself fully. After 50, the only shame worth holding is the shame of not having loved yourself sooner. Because there is nothing shameful about wanting to be close. Nothing shameful about longing for warmth, connection, and shared affection. 2. Communication that never grew up. You'd think that with age comes better communication. And in some ways, that's true. But when it comes to sexual or emotional intimacy, many of us never learned how to talk about what we really need. We were taught how to speak about bills, chores, or schedules, but not about touch. Not about the kind of love that makes us feel alive. And certainly not about what hurts when we feel disconnected. If you're over 50 and feel awkward talking about intimacy, you are not alone. But silence only deepens the distance. The solution? Start small. Start gently. Instead of asking for everything, say something honest. I miss being close. I'd like to hold you for a while tonight. It's been hard to talk about this, but I want to try. When you open the door to vulnerability, intimacy follows. 3. Health, medications, and hormonal shifts. The physical body has a vote in our intimate lives, whether we like it or not. Chronic illness, diabetes, high blood pressure, arthritis, cancer treatment. These realities can impact not just how we feel, but how we function. For women, postmenopausal changes in estrogen can lead to dryness, thinning tissue, or discomfort. For men, reduced testosterone or medications can affect erections or libido. None of this makes you less of a person, but it does call for adaptation. Lubricants, hormone therapy, physical therapy, or simply adjusting expectations can go a long way. So can choosing different forms of intimacy that aren't focused solely on intercourse. A massage, a shared bath, even simple spooning can rebuild confidence and spark desire. Talk to a healthcare provider. Seek out therapists who specialize in sexuality and aging. There is help. And you are not broken, just changing. For emotional clutter and unhealed pain. One of the most underrated barriers to intimacy is the baggage we carry, sometimes quietly, for decades. Past betrayals. Emotional neglect. The pain of growing apart. The resentment we never voiced. These aren't just emotional scars. They become silent walls between us and the people we love. We may still share a bed, still eat meals together, but something remains unspoken, and that silence breeds distance. The healing starts with acknowledgement. Then, with conversation. Sometimes, with the help of a therapist. Sometimes, with just a brave moment of honesty. I know we've drifted, but I don't want to stay like this. In midlife and beyond, we were offered a choice: carry the emotional clutter forward or finally set it down and make space for something more beautiful. 5. The fear of rejection. This fear may not go away with age, it might even deepen. What if my partner isn't attracted to me anymore? What if I make a move and get turned away? What if I try, and fail? Fear is powerful. But here's the paradox: the only way to dissolve fear is to move through it. Intimacy is risky. Vulnerability always carries a chance of rejection. But more often than not, it leads to something else: healing. When you make the first move, not in body, but in honesty, you give your partner permission to do the same. Even if it's awkward. Even if it's slow. What matters is that you're saying, I'm still here. I still care. And I want to try. That effort alone can reignite a connection long thought lost. 6. The illusion that it's too late. Perhaps the greatest lie of all is the belief that your window has closed, that after 50, love and desire are behind you. But I want to tell you something that may surprise you. Some of the most passionate, life-affirming, soul-deep relationships begin in midlife or even later. Why? Because now you know yourself. Now you've made mistakes and learned what matters. Now, you're not chasing approval, you're seeking connection. So whether you're married, divorced, widowed, or single, this moment is yours. It's not too late. It's never too late. Let this be the turning point. If you've struggled with physical challenges, emotional barriers, fear, or silence, it's okay. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But now is your chance to try again. Not to be who you were, but to become who you are now, wiser, deeper, more open-hearted. Let intimacy after 50 be defined not by what you've lost, but by what you still have to give and to receive. The warmth of a touch. The depth of a look. The silence that speaks volumes. The courage to say, I'm here, I still want this, I still want you. Coming up in part 3. In the next video, we'll explore how to reignite connection and rediscover pleasure, including practical tips for couples and individuals. We'll also talk about intimacy for those starting over, dating after 50, and how to build emotional safety so physical closeness can thrive again. If you found this video meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps more people just like you find healing and hope. Part 3, Reigniting Intimacy After 50, a new chapter of love, touch, and emotional safety. Welcome back, dear listener. If you've followed this far, you already know, intimacy after 50 is not about going backward, it's about evolving into a deeper, richer connection. This is the part where we stop looking at what we've lost, and instead turn our attention to what we can create. A new kind of closeness. A new expression of desire. A new era of intimacy that doesn't just satisfy the body but nourishes the soul. So let's talk about reigniting intimacy with your partner, with a new love, or even within yourself. 1. Start with safety, emotional before physical. At this stage in life, emotional safety becomes even more vital than physical touch. Why? Because true intimacy only happens when both people feel seen, respected, and free to be vulnerable. That's the soil where closeness grows. Create emotional safety by listening without interrupting, validating each other's experiences, especially around aging, fear, or changes in libido. Avoiding blame or judgment around what's not working. Sometimes it's not about doing more, it's about doing less. Less rushing. Less pressure. Less performance. Start here. How can I make you feel safe with me again? That question can open more doors than any grand gesture. 2. Relearn each other, with curiosity, not comparison. Many couples fall into the trap of comparing who they are now, to who they once were. But bodies change. Sensitivity shifts. Time adds both aches and wisdom. The question is not, how do we get back to where we were? The real question is, who are we now? And how can I meet you here? Set aside what used to turn you on. Ask what feels good now. Be curious. Explore together without expectation. Maybe it's a new kind of touch. A slower rhythm. A different kind of closeness. There's no script. No performance. Just two people willing to learn each other again, like it's the first time with the wisdom of a lifetime behind them. 3. Redefine pleasure, beyond the bedroom. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is expanding your idea of intimacy. It's not just about sex. It's about presence. Cooking together. Reading in bed, side by side. Slow dancing in the kitchen. Holding hands during a walk. A glance across the room that says, I still see you. When you build emotional intimacy in everyday life, physical connection becomes more natural, less pressured, more inviting. Let pleasure become a daily language, not a special event. 4. Reignite physical intimacy, gently, creatively, and playfully. If you've faced physical or hormonal changes, you're not alone. But you don't need to give up, only adapt. Here are a few gentle suggestions. Use touch as exploration, not goal-driven action. A long back massage, a shared bath, or simply cuddling can reignite desire. Create rituals of closeness like Sunday mornings in bed or evening hugs before sleep. Speak your desires out loud. At this age, the guessing game is over. It's time for honesty without shame. You might also consider lubricants or topical treatments. Hormone therapy, if safe for you. Tantra-inspired breathing or eye-gazing. Intimacy coaching or therapy, especially for couples reconnecting after a dry spell. And most importantly, laugh. Laugh at the awkwardness. Laugh at the creaky knees. Laugh at the idea that intimacy has an expiration date. Playfulness is the door to passion. 5. Navigating new relationships after 50. What if you're single? Divorced? Widowed? Intimacy doesn't disappear because your old chapter ended. It simply waits for the right moment to return. If you're starting over, know this. You have more to offer now than you ever did before. You deserve a connection that meets you as you are, not who you used to be. You don't need to settle just to avoid being alone. Take your time. Date with honesty. Choose emotional compatibility over surface attraction. Be clear about your boundaries and needs. And when intimacy does arrive, allow yourself to receive it without guilt, fear, or apology. You are still worthy of touch. Of being kissed. Of being adored. 6. The role of self-intimacy. Before we can truly connect with another, we must reconnect with ourselves. After 50, your body may feel foreign. Or perhaps you've ignored it for years in favor of work, family, or caregiving. But now is the time to come home to your own skin. Touch yourself gently. Explore what feels good. Not for climax but for reconnection. Move your body in ways that make you feel alive. Yoga, dancing, walking barefoot in the grass. Adorn your body with clothes, scents, or rituals that remind you, I am still beautiful. I am still here. Self-intimacy is not selfish. It's the foundation upon which healthy, joyful love is built. 7. Let go of the timeline, embrace presence. Maybe you haven't felt desired in years. Maybe your partner is no longer able or willing to connect the way they used to. Maybe you're grieving, healing, or just beginning again. Take this to heart, there is no deadline on desire. No clock on closeness. No finish line for love. Every day is a new invitation. A new beginning. Even if it's slow. Even if it's quiet. Sometimes, the most intimate moments come not from fireworks but from the soft flame that never quite went out. So sit together. Breathe. Remember. Begin again. This is not the end. It's the beautiful middle. In your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond you are still becoming. Still deserving of connection. Still able to touch and be touched not just with your hands, but with your presence, your heart, your truth. Let intimacy now be honest, tender, and soulful. Not rushed. Not performed. But deeply lived. This is your second act. And it might just be your most beautiful one yet. Folded hands if this spoke to you. If you felt seen, heard, or comforted by these words, please consider liking this video, sharing it with someone who might need to hear it, subscribing for more healing, real, age-positive content. Because everyone deserves to know that love doesn't end with age, it deepens.